You're listening to the My Hair Ain't Nappy podcast, where I'll be giving valuable insight and thought-provoking perspectives about the connections between our hair and how we live our daily lives. I know that many of you have heard people talking about jerry curls and pressing curls, high top fades and sporting waves, the best products for your hair, and so much more. But what you haven't heard is how our hair can be a full reflection of what's going on in our hearts, what's going on in our minds, what's going on in our bodies, and what's going on in our souls. I'm your host, Darius Peace, and I'm excited to be your weekly guide on the journey to having better hair and a better life. So I'm a huge advocate for people in business keeping it professional, especially in the hair care industry. One of the things that I'm always telling people, especially when they are in the professions of hairstylists and barbers, is to keep it professional, because it's so easy for people to either blur those lines of professionalism or either just dismiss them altogether. And I know that hairstyling can get very personal for people because of the comfort level. My voice sounds weird, but it's not the thing. It's me. Like I just feel this kind of gurgly whatever, and I don't feel sick or anything like that. It's just I just feel a little gurgly or hoarse. But anyway, it's because of the comfort level and the intimacy that's shared, especially because the head is being touched. And there's a lot of care and a lot of vulnerability associated with getting your hair done. In most cases, the first person to usually do your hair is your mom. And I'm thinking about this from infancy, just her being the first person to touch your head and caress your head and just really groom your hair. So with that being so fundamental for people, I think that adds to the depth of how intimate this practice is for so many and how sacred it is. Although a lot of people may not agree to take it that far, but I think it's pretty sacred. And so for the longest time, I associated the deficit of Black hair care techniques that consist of curling, braiding, twisting, and locking techniques with racism. I'm going to say that again just in case you missed that. I used to associate the deficit of Black hair care techniques in the overall beauty industry. I would associate it with, especially those techniques of braiding and twisting and locking and curling. I associated the deficit of these being in the industry as a common practice and in schools as a common teaching because of racism. And I'm now learning that it's beyond racism that contributes to this disparity in both cosmetology and barbering. It's another showcase of caste discrimination. And I talked about caste systems in previous episodes of the My Hair Ain't Nappy podcast, and I'm going to dive more into this topic today, right after a word from our sponsor. But just so you know, before you go in, what I'm going to talk about beyond this is helpful tips for wearing your natural hair, wearing braids, wearing extensions, because a lot of people are really out here failing, and it really does tie closely in to this caste discrimination that I'm speaking of. But we're going to talk about it right after a word from our sponsors.
Visit HayaBeauty.com. That's HAYAH beauty.com, or give us a call 205-703-8022 for questions, for information, or to book your appointment.
Beauty can take you higher. The mission is to inspire. I am, I was, and I always will be. Beauty higher. Beauty can take you higher. The mission is to inspire. And I always choose to start my day with higher, higher beauty.
And we are back. So since watching the film Origins, that's the name of the film, in which caste systems are the main topic of this show. It's an Ava DuVernay film, and this is like my third time mentioning this film in one of the podcast episodes here. And I mean, it really has had an impact on me, so much so that I can't stop thinking about it, because I'm able to really see the difference between what I've formerly recognized as racism in a lot of showcases of discrimination, but I'm seeing it as beyond racism now. I see it as caste, and in some cases there's a little bit of racism in there, but I see it as more caste system discrimination than anything. But this film, Origin, is a must watch in my opinion. It's so good. But throughout the film, the main character commits her life as well as her career into discovering a global showcase of caste systems being the dominant strategy for segregation over what we common over or instead of what we call racism. And this is something that's taking place all over the world, but the United States, Jim Crow is what really inspired caste systems all over the globe. It's just so wild and so bizarre. The more I'm learning about it, and how it's playing in so many different endeavors, and it's really opened my eyes to how this caste system is trickled into so many different industries, so many different endeavors. And in this particular case, we're going to talk about how caste systems is really present and relevant in the hair care industry, and how many negative effects this discrimination in hair care, in regards to black or Afro textured hair care, is concerned. When I began my beauty and barbering education over two decades ago, I immediately noticed that there was only a micro focus of black hair care, especially in the areas of braiding, locking, twisting, and even curling or coiling Afro textured hair. And I was so young and premature at the time. I mean, I was 19. I was young. I was still a teenager when I really started to tap into this industry. And at that time, I didn't realize how detrimental this was, this discrimination or this deficit in the educational sector of the beauty industry. I was too young to recognize it, or I just didn't have the eyes to see how detrimental it was, and how it would be this way for my career and for the career of many others. And I say that because, when it comes to the beauty industry and we're talking about what's taught in schools, there's only one section that is covering Afro textured styling. And when I say a micro focus, I really do mean a micro focus, because although the textbook may showcase one section or segment of the book to focus on Afro hair textured styling, which is usually braiding. It'll go into braiding a little bit, but it's only one section, and even though that one section in the book is there, it's not taught. It's not really, you skim over it. The teacher may say, hey, yeah, go read this chapter right here so that you can pass the test or be able to answer these certain questions on a test or quiz. But when it comes to the practicum side of it, it's rarely taught and rarely showcased in schools. And that's why so many people enter into the beauty industry ill prepared or just not prepared at all. The black hair industry has been really a victim, and I don't even know whether to call an industry a victim, but I'll say that, or maybe just black hair care No, I would say hair care professionals in general have been really victim to this caste discrimination. And it's so relevant, especially with black hair care. It makes black hair care very irrelevant in the overall beauty industry. It makes it under-recognized, demonized, unprofessional, and unattractive by the Eurocentric influenced beauty industry. And I say that because when it comes to hairstylists, even black hairstylists, there's a lot of pride associated with Sassoon and Vidal Sassoon and Paul Mitchell, and a lot of very white European operated and dominated brands and showcases of styling techniques. And most of these techniques they're not compatible with Afro textured hair, but because that's what's being taught in the curriculum and while you're in school, as well as the post graduation side, That's the dominant influence. And even when you see marketing campaigns, that's still the dominant showcase of what you see and what has been seen over the years, especially on the professional side of things. On the consumer side, you may see more showcases of texture, curls, waves, twist coils, locks. You'll see more of that on the commercial side because that's not where the focus is on the professional side. So it's a lot, and I know I seem or sound like I'm all over the place. I don't want to, but I'm getting back on track with all of it. So just bear with me because this is a very heavy topic for me, especially because I've been operating in the industry for as long as I have, and this enlightenment. And some people call them illuminations of the mind. I'm just becoming aware of this in this way, and so I'm giving it to you fresh. It's not anything that's preconceived. I'm giving this to you fresh as it's coming to mind, and so, but. As I was saying, to this very day, there is very little focus showcased in cosmetology and beauty school curriculums regarding the treatment, the styling, the preservation, and the overall maintenance of afro textured hair, especially in the case of twists, locks, braids, and coils. And because of the influence of caste systems in the overall beauty industry, black hair care has been globally dismissed, and most unfortunately, even by black hair care professionals. And for non-black people, black hair care is non-existent. It's untouchable, and the likelihood of a black person having an excellent style and service experience in a non-black hair care salon is so low. And similarly, this is the case for black people going into black hair care establishments. This is where the service and style disparity is most evident, and it really showcases that caste system's influence in the overall industry. Now, most black folks grow naturally curly or coily textured hair, regardless of the tightness or looseness in form. It all exists in this category, and the casting of blacks to the lowest level of human, social, and racial hierarchy has inspired this dismissal that I'm talking about, of any specific hair care essentials, or just care essentials. It showcases itself in medicine, psychology, beauty, law, and so many other industries. And I'm going to tap into all of those. Because those are such deep topics, I'm going to save those for another episode of the My Hair Ain't Nappy podcast. But right now, we're just going to keep our focus on the disparity that we see of hair care practices and proficiency being showcased in the beauty industry. In this industry, many black hair care pros frown upon black hair care in the same manner as non-black hair care pros. When you talk about textured hairstyling, when you talk about locks, you talk about braids, you talk about twists, a lot of people frown upon that. And this all stems from the ignorance in black hair care proficiency. And as a result of low black hair education in the beauty education system and curriculum, a lot of hair care professionals are not able to offer a wide range or a diverse showcase of services to people in general. And everybody is afraid of black hair textures because of negative stigmas and negative stereotypes, it being unruly, it being too dry, it being unmanageable. And all of these things are false. They are untrue. I always see hair as fabric, in the way that we're able to manage different fabrics to showcase fashion in the world. We can showcase the fabric of hair to do the same thing and demonstrate beauty in more than one way. And consequently, the black people all over the world, we've suffered from hair loss, we've suffered from hair damage, we've suffered from physical trauma, emotional trauma, shame, costuming, and so much more, all because of this lack of proficiency and lack of education that has been delivered from a curricular standpoint in the beauty industry. one of the most culturally damaging effects of caste system to me in the hair care industry is hair loss. And I know I just mentioned that, but it's hair loss in the name of preserving the culture. And I've got a lot of industry colleagues who disagree with there being regulations put on braiding and locking and twisting, just overall natural hair care in the beauty education sector. They've expressed concerns about how white institutions are now able to make money off of the regulation of cultural hair practices with Afro hair care. And I agree. I agree that monetizing on the certification and the regulation and education on black hair care is unethical because there's no curriculum or no formal curriculum that can justify the cost to me. So if you're going to go to school and you're being charged to be able to practice doing natural Afro textured hair in the form of braiding and locking and twisting and coiling, then of course you need to be taught by someone who has a formal education or who's able to give you just some really good practicum that will equip you to give professional quality service and professional quality styling as opposed to what we're able to see on YouTube or any online media platforms done by the novices in the bathroom. And so that's what seems unethical that the beauty industry is now charging. Well, beauty industry on the educational platform is now charging braiders and locticians to be able to practice this. Now, for years, well, today a license is now required in order to be able to practice these skill sets. But for years, and when I say years, I mean prior to 5 to 10 years ago, nobody had to have a license to do braids, to do locks, to do twists. They were just able to open up a salon, open up a shop, and just go for what they know. And I know that the cultural connection in braiding, locking, and twisting, and even adding weave extensions to Afro texture hair has involved a lot of comfort and, in my opinion, a lack of professionalism, which has led to so many poor hair care practices. And the thing that I do agree with regarding the regulation of natural hair care practices, including the aforementioned, is the accountability held to professionals to practice high standards of sanitation and understanding of bacteriology, as well as learning the techniques that can help best protect and preserve the fortitude and integrity of their client's hair. Now, that to me is why there should be regulation to make sure that those standards are heightened. Other than that, but in that, it's just kind of challenging to really regulate people and charge them for a license and certification if you don't have people who can really teach them these techniques in a formal way. So let me calm down. It's just, I know I can just feel the intensity and the passion in my tone, but I mean, this is a passionate subject for me because I want things to get better for people, and I can see a lot of the side and the after effects that result from this. Many hair care pros and practitioners who offer braiding, locking, and weaving services will sometimes require their clients to come into the salon with their hair pre-shampooed. Now, I'm a veteran hair care pro. I'm also a beauty expert. I am a big advocate that the shampoo section, the shampoo segment of any styling appointment is the most important part. That's the most important part of the whole experience. It's during this time that we, the hair care pros, the stylist, the barber, that we're able to assess the overall condition of your hair and scalp, as well as assess if there's anything, any active thinning or shedding or breakage occurring with the hair. This right here, this shampoo period, is the time to consult on what the overall goals are with your hair. If you have any, if you want to grow it longer, if you want to, keep it short and sassy or what have you. And not proceeding the styling segment with a proper shampoo, in my opinion, as well as my experience, can lead to hair loss, hair damage, breakage, and a whole lot more. And these practices of laziness, that's led me to what I call the meat of this episode of the My Hair Ain't Nappy podcast. And that's what I mentioned right before we went to the break. I want to help you all have some just some techniques and some practices for really preserving your hair, especially in the case of getting braids and getting weaves. And there was something recently that happened in the salon with one of my clients that really led me to this, and that's why I'm speaking with so much passion and so much intensity. And it happened twice actually. So there were two women who came in, and of course, in the summertime, that's the time where you'll see more women, black women, getting their hair braided. That's just one of the most sought after style options for the summer because it's very low maintenance. It allows you to be able to vacate without your hair being a concern. You can not have any worries about your hair swelling up in the heat or frizzing up in the heat, all those things. So that's one of the most popular practices for many black women across the globe during the summer months, especially where it's hot. Now, the maintenance that should be done with braids is where a lot of people tend to fail. There are some people who will shampoo their hair, but I've recently had two different people within 1 week to ask me or mention, yeah, I washed my hair with a dry shampoo before I came, and that's what helped me to preserve it while I was wearing my braids. And I was like, wait, what? You did a what? And they said I was able to wash my hair with a dry shampoo. So if you are listening to this episode of the My Hair Ain't Nappy podcast today, the meat of this episode is me giving you helpful tips for wearing braids and wearing extensions. And I gave a lot of backstory as to how we got here with people not knowing proper care techniques for wearing braids, twists, locks, weaves, extensions, or what have you. Don't use a dry shampoo. That's number one. Dry shampoo is not, it's almost like a false cognizant. It's not what it says it is. Dry shampoos are usually used on straighter hair textures to help absorb a lot of the oil that the body naturally produces that can weigh the hair down. And people who have naturally straight hair are likely to shampoo their hair more often than those who do not. And the dry shampoo will give them a little more time with having volume and lift on their hair before they go into their next shampoo session. And so when you're talking about braids and locks and twists, because Afro texture hair is typically not as oil dominant or oil absorbent, oil heavy as straighter hair textures, dry shampoos will dehydrate the hair and create a heavy buildup at the root that can result in locking at the root and a hard time in trying to remove a lot of buildup at the root when those braids are coming out. So you end up losing a lot more hair than what you would have normally in the shedding process because now you've dehydrated your hair and really clunked in a lot of buildup at the root because this is a powder that you put on top of the already oily buildup, serum, stuff that's already there, matting and locking up. So it just makes things worse. And I always tell people, if you're going to use a product, read the instructions on that product. Don't just put a product on your hair because some unprofessional novice told you, oh yeah, in between times you can just go get a dry shampoo, because that means that that professional is not educated. They did not go to school. They're less likely to have a licensure or any certification to do this. And they've given you false information that is leading you to a place of hair loss or hair damage overall. And that's the thing about, the argument that I typically get into with hairstylists who want to preserve the culture with braids and locks and twists and not have these practices or techniques regulated. It's these cases right here that showcase that they do need to be regulated, because you've got hair care practitioners who are not giving people good, accurate, concrete information on how to best preserve and maintain their hair. Because to tell someone to use a dry shampoo on braids means that that practitioner has not done any research on what a dry shampoo does. It's not a shampoo. It's not used for cleansing the hair at all. It is an oil absorbing product that is powdery. You can either shake it on as a powder or spray it on as a powder, and it absorbs moisture so that you can get more lift and volume on your hair until you get to that next shampoo session. It is not for cleaning. I always tell people, when you're going to wash your hair, you wash your hair with water. You don't get a dry towel and say, oh, yeah, I'm going to bathe with a dry towel. You better get your nasty ass in there and put some water and soap on your body. In the same way with your head, you want to get in there and make sure your hair is washed and clean. And because there are so many braiders and locticians who, and even hairstylists overall, who are now telling people to come with their hair pre-shampooed, that goes against all practices of and concepts of sanitation, bacteriology. For years in the early part of the 20th century, there were a lot of people who were getting tuberculosis because of poor hair care practices, because of poor sanitation and bacteriology education. And so we don't want to go back there. And if a person is telling you to come pre-shampoo, then that's not where you should go. Because now you're already in a situation where it's like, okay, this person has not assessed my hair. They don't even know whether my hair is even strong enough to even handle these braids. Do I have any pre-existing shedding? If so, how are they going to best maintain my strands while they're braiding? All of those things. So because this is my biggest concern in this episode of the My Hair Ain't Nappy podcast, I'm going to give you 6 steps that you can take for or 6 helpful tips, not even steps. These are tips for wearing braids and extensions so that you can best preserve your hair overall. Tip number one, research the style option that you're getting. Like if it's braids, do some research on what you're getting. So that you know what you're getting into. I mean, look at different style options. Look at different sizes for the style options. If it's extensions that you're doing, look at the extensions. Is this a new technique? How many people have worn it? Just so forth. So that's number one. Do some research on the style option that you're getting. Tip number 2, research the stylist that you're choosing. And when I say research the stylist, I mean investigate. Investigate other clients that they've worked with. Look at current pictures of what the client's real hair look like, and assess the perimeter of their heads and hairline. I remember when my wife was pregnant with our last child, and I'm not a braider. Now, I can braid very well, but I just don't practice braiding in the salon because it's very time consuming. And so my wife wanted her hair braided before she went into labor or went to the hospital to deliver our child. And so we went to a braiding salon to see about getting her hair braided. And while we went in there, of course, I went in there to do the consultation with her because, see, my wife's hair has to always be stellar. She can't be running around in these streets with no edges, and I'm her husband, because that makes me look bad, as if I'm not your natural hair expert. And I am your natural hair expert. So anyway, we went in there and we were talking to the stylist that we were recommended to about her practices, and we asked her several questions. And so one of the questions that we asked was, what does she do to protect and preserve the hairline, the edges? And her client was sitting in the chair, and she spoke on her behalf. Oh, she does a wonderful job at keeping the edges. And I'm looking like, well, your edges look pretty compromised. Are you sure? And then all hell broke loose. Of course, we were asked to leave. But the truth of the matter is her edges were gone. So you can't really endorse this person as someone who protects the edges, and your hairline is all the way in the middle of your head. And so anyway, that was a little bit of drama in itself. But we didn't, needless to say, we didn't proceed with getting her hair braided there. But we took the time to get the consultation so that we could protect my wife's image and her hairline, as well as my reputation as your natural hair expert. And if it's someone that who's been to that person, ask them about their experience, and not just the experience while in the salon. What was their experience after removing the extensions? And I'm not just talking about braids. I'm talking about having just box braids, crochet braids. I'm talking about sew-in weaves, extensions. I'm talking about micro link extensions. All of these, glue-in bonding extensions. All of that. Just asked about what the hair looked like afterwards, and just get information on that. So that's step number 2. No, that was long-winded, but that's still step number 2. Step number 3, or tip number 3. Ask for referrals from people who have healthy heads of hair with wearing braids and extensions. Don't go to somebody whose edges have been compromised, because those are the people who have already lived and learned, and you already know whoever you went to is not where I want to go. Tip number 4. Book a consultation with your chosen professional and ask them essential questions like the following. Question number 1. How do you help preserve hair growth? How do you help preserve hair growth with the extensions? Especially in the case of once the extensions have been removed from the hair. Question number 2, what's the best way to remove these braids or extensions? Number 3, do you offer that service? Meaning, will you remove it if I'm not able to, or because I don't want to? And if so, how long is this process? Is there an added charge for the removal? Is there a pre-treatment that I should do before removing these extensions? What's the maintenance in between visits while wearing these braids or extensions? How often can I shampoo my hair while wearing this style? What is the likelihood of me losing hair during the removal of this hairstyle? Does this style involve a lot of traction on my scalp? How long can I wear this style? Are there any recommended products that I should use while wearing these braids or extensions? Do most of your clients experience healthy hair following this style? Can you show me photos of what most of your clients' hair look like after these braids or extensions? And there is nothing wrong, y'all, with asking 1.5 million questions during the consultation, because that's the whole purpose of you even getting with them. And any stylist who takes offense to you asking all these questions, then you already know that it's time for you to keep your money and go elsewhere. Always keep in mind that in these situations, you're the star. You're the client, because you're the one spending money. And if there are so many others who can offer the service of braids and extensions, just like that person is able to. So don't think that you're locked into that one person. Tip number 5, when removing extensions, execute the following steps. Now listen to these, y'all, because this right here can save you. The following steps. Condition. So with each extension removal, brush and remove the section of hair with a detangler. Now, detangler, you can look online and Google what a detangler is, but you want to use this. One of my favorites is an unbrush, and I'll actually post a link on my page for you to be able to access that if you want to get one. But it's called an unbrush, and it really is an excellent detangler for helping to best preserve the hair when you're removing these extensions. But you can actually do this by detangling from tip to root for each section that you're detangling. And now keep in mind, some shedding is to be expected, but it should not be excessive. Condition with a slick and slippery conditioner after the detangling is complete. Now, this is really important. Don't go straight to the bathroom and shampoo your hair right after you've done the detangling, or especially if you've not done the detangling, because you will have unwanted, unmanipulated locks. And if that's not the look that you're going for, then don't do it. When you're shampooing after this conditioning treatment, you want to focus on detangling at the same time. So while you're shampooing, you want to keep that detangler and detangle your hair while you're scrubbing your scalp to ensure that you don't experience any matting or excessive tangling of the hair. Following the shampoo, you want to condition again, and resume that process of detangling the hair. As you can hear what I'm saying, the detangling is the most important part of removing any braids and any extensions. And once you're done with that, you'll dry your hair and style your hair as normal. And tip number 6, remember, glue is best used on paper, not hair. In the same way that paper tears when you're trying to separate what's been adhered with glue, hair will do the same thing. So I don't care who it is that's telling you like, oh, well, we can get it out safely. Yeah, once you start doing that, over time, you'll start to experience a lot of loss and a lot of shedding and a lot of damage to your hair. So I just wanted to put that out there. I know that this was a lot. I know that it was intense, but I am out here to make sure that we are best preserving hair out here. Why? Because your hair ain't nappy and we don't have to treat it like it is. And guess what? My hair ain't nappy either. Until next time.
Hi, I'm Danielle Hines, the owner and founder of Creed 63. Creed 63 is located in the Arthur Shores Law Center in the Birmingham Civil Rights District. Creed 63 does 4 things for small businesses and entrepreneurs. We have a podcast studio, co-working space, virtual offices, and private offices. Stop by anytime you are in the Civil Rights District to see how Creed 63 can help you grow and expand your small business. You can find us at creed63.com.
Thank you for listening to the My Hair Ain't Nappy podcast. Reach out to us on social media. We're on TikTok and we're on Instagram at the My Hair Ain't Nappy podcast. We want to hear your stories. Until next time, love you and love your hair.